So welcome back to the Peak Podcast. We are running a new series. I've got a friend of mine here, Akil Bilal. We met a little while ago through Kinstretch. As I was embarking on this journey of getting my Kinstretch level 2, I was looking up a couple of people, and Akil was the guy that I found that was running the show up in Dubai. And we became friends, and we started sharing some recipes and experiences and stuff. So the two of us really wanted to get together and start this podcast series to educate people. You know, coming from his background, which he'll tell you about in a moment, and my background, and where those things intersect, and how mobility is not just for one sport or the other, but it's for humans. And the application or the goal might be different, but the input and the overall outcome is exactly the same. So, how's it, Akil? Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Peter. Good, man. Doing great.
Yeah, it's good that we finally got to kick this off. I think it's long overdue. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, with the scheduling, and life, time zones, and everything. No, I'm so happy to just get this started, get kicked off, get the momentum going. So, yeah. Thanks for
That's
having me,
cool.
man. It's great.
So kick off. I mean, I'm going off the cuff. I introduce you, so go ahead, man. Tell us where you're from. What do you do? I know you're traveling the world a bit, so tell us about that. Some of the new journeys that you're on, and what brought you on this FRC mobility journey that got you stuck as well.
Well, Peter, I'm from America, from the East Coast, a native of North Carolina. I moved around a lot as a kid, and I think it never left my veins. So I've just been a sort of a nomad my whole life. So I left America a long time ago to start traveling the world, and I ended up in the Middle East for many years before living in Europe and Africa, and then back to the Middle East where we met. And along the way, I've done a lot of martial arts, jiu-jitsu in particular. I've done over 20 years of martial arts. I'm second degree black belt as of now.
Good man.
And just trained a lot of jiu-jitsu. I've done CrossFit. I've done just about everything. I was a F45 studio owner. So I was the first one to open up an F45 studio in the mainland of Europe back in 2016, where we ran the studio, and the plans were to open up a few more. But then the whole COVID thing happened, and we decided to close it down and move to Africa for a while. But then being in Africa, obviously I was out in Cape Verde, very small place. And I was still itchy to be in the environment, like a clinical type of environment, or just a bigger space where I could learn from my colleagues and get more case studies and things like that. So had an opportunity to come out to Dubai, and I was out there for about a year and a half. But now I'm traveling a little bit in Southeast Asia at the moment. And that's where I'm at right now. But I'm still working online with people, still teaching Kinstretch along the way. I've got a lot of friends I've met who own gyms and, in the jiu-jitsu space. So I teach a lot of Kinstretch classes in their gyms and stuff like that. So,
And,
that's
and
where
that's
I'm
the
at, man.
nice thing too, though, right? That's the nice thing too is I know it's nice to be in an environment where you can do a lot of this stuff hands-on, and I know a lot of clients like the hands-on, tactile feedback in the moment, real-time stuff. But there is still a very big market for people that especially if you've built up some contacts over the years, you've
Yeah.
built up those relationships, and you can get to work with those people. Yeah, and the age that we're in now, you can do that from anywhere. We could be doing a Kinstretch class right now, right? So
Absolutely.
it's really, really nice that you still get to, like you say, you're a bit of a nomad. You get to travel the world, but you still get to share this with different people.
Yeah, and I meet up with people. So, for example, a lot of people they travel to Bali for holiday. So if
Yeah,
I'm happen to be in Bali at the same time, then we can do some one-on-ones together. So it's almost like a hybrid program. I
yeah,
normally touch base with my clients a couple times a year face to face, and everything else is pretty much online.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, my my backstory is a little different to yours. Not so much a nomad. Born and raised in South Africa. Came from a completely different background. Ended up in, studied engineering, mechanical engineering. Went into that space for many years. Worked myself up through corporate, and obviously always had a passion for sports. I ran track and field and cross country, and I did a whole bunch of sports. Typical South African kid. Did as much as we
Yeah.
could, and I've always been really active. Probably too much so, without paying too much attention to mobility over the years. And it's really only, say, about 4 or 5 years ago when, you know things start to break down. You skip a couple of maintenance cycles and things start to break a little when you start to pay attention. And that's really what got me on this journey. Is I obviously went through the rehab and stuff and recovered pretty well, but I was looking for something more, and that's when I found FRC. And you and I talked about this quite a lot when we just met. Once you stick your head down that rabbit hole, it just
Yeah.
it just goes. And for me, that was exactly that. And that's how I got to you, and that's how things got started. And now it's still based here in Dubai, still fighting to make things work. Set up a good couple of relationships. Coming from my background, being CrossFit, I've done CrossFit. I've been doing CrossFit now for probably well over 12, 13 years. So that's really my safe space, my area of expertise, where I'm in that space. I know the kind of injuries people deal with, the type of prehab we need to do, and just trying to, through these partnerships that I've built with a couple of the facilities now, and obviously with the online presence, just trying to get more CrossFitters to get less injured.
Yeah.
It's a tough conversation to have still, because particularly with CrossFit, people tend to think still, well, because the variability of the exercise and the work is so much, you still get joint training. And we'll get into those details quite a bit over this series, right?
Yeah.
Why certain misconceptions are there. Well, I do a lot of squatting, so therefore I must have good hips, or I must have good ankles, that kind of stuff. But we'll get into that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what this series is about, right?
And prevention and prehab is just not in our DNA as humans. We
100%.
we like to
Yeah.
just live on the edge and then fix it,
Yeah.
or live with pain for the rest of our lives. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's just
And-
something that you don't feel it until you have a few more birthdays, and then
yeah.
you,
True. True.
yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah, and as the saying goes, right? Don't fix something that ain't broke. But
yeah,
I think the stuff that we're working on is a very good example of why you shouldn't adopt that methodology for life.
yeah.
Rather try and be a bit more preventative, a bit more proactive, so you can get to enjoy sports and stuff, well into your later years. Probably not, well, definitely not as good as you are in your 20s, but body takes a beating, that's for sure. That's inevitable. Stuff deteriorate and it breaks down, but we do our best to try and keep things in play for as long as we can.
I tell you, Peter. I mean, look, I do travel a bit, and I like to do, and of course, you're from South Africa. Like hiking, and you
Mm,
know, may want to go down to see a waterfall or down in a cave. You have to have a level of fitness to do that. I mean, the other
yeah,
day we just, one of the guides took us down into sort of a cave where there was a small waterfall, and the whole time I was thinking, man, I know so many people that just would never be able to do this, and they would miss,
yeah,
this beautiful, uh, creation, this waterfall, because they simply couldn't get down and get back up those stairs.
yeah,
That was quite steep and slippery, and just not having the body for everyday things, or just
yeah,
swimming, or going snorkeling, or diving, or whatever. Like, you got to have a level of fitness, and you have to have the joint capacity to do it.
yeah,
Not even talking about performance in the CrossFit, box or
hundred
on the
percent.
mat, just for life in general.
Yeah. And I think that's
You
where a
know,
lot of people misunderstand it, right? And unfortunately, that's where that mindset creeps in of, I've hit my 40s, I've hit my 50s, stuff is not working like it used to anymore. It's just the way it is. It's because I'm getting older. And you touched on it there because, this is obviously not just for performance. I know we're coming from those angles,
yep,
looking at it from the jiu-jitsu side of things, looking at it from the CrossFit side of things, general fitness. But it's like you say, it's just having the ability to enjoy life. Climb up the edge of a rock to go and see a waterfall or
hmm
whatever it is. And the smallest things. I think you talked about it the other day. Very simple slip on the rock, sprain your ankle. You're a relatively fit guy, maybe, but not having the joint capacity in certain areas. It could be the smallest things that you tend to ignore on a day-to-day basis that gets you. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens.
yeah,
I guess I was telling you the other day, just you're on holiday, man. You're in Thailand. You want to wear flip flops, right? So you wear your flip
yeah,
flops, and the roads are not always you know paved smoothly in
yeah,
Thailand, and you step on a rock and you twist the ankle, and it happened to me. It happened to me and my wife, and but because we do ankle stuff, we
yeah,
train our ankles, so we didn't panic. There was a little bit of soreness there, but I thought, wow, if I've never done any type of ankle work and I hit that rock the way I did, I would have been my whole
yeah,
vacation would have been ruined the rest of the time. You know,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and we take some of these things for granted as well, because if you look into the fitness space and just training in general, there's just so much stuff to pay attention to, right? You got to do joint capacity training. You got to train it long and short and to length, and strength training and cardiovascular training. There's just so much stuff to do, and and I've seen with a lot of people some of the stuff we tend to do is not always super exciting, right? And we've talked about this as well. Is you're not going to you're not going to go flex your shoulder capsule in the mirror and
no,
it's going to look really really good. So
it's
people
not
tend to
sexy at
also
all.
ignore it. No, it's not sexy. Definitely not flexing, but it sets the good foundation for you to be able to use that shoulder for something a bit more productive, lift heavier, do certain things that will give you the sexiness aspect, if you will, right?
I remember. I had a client online, and for months we worked together, but we had never met in person. And I finally met her in person, and she did the cars with me in person. And she said, "Oh my God, I haven't been doing cars properly."
Doing something, but not cars. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's the way it is, man. But yeah, man, this I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this series, and hopefully, it will resonate with people. Will come from the coach's
yeah,
perspective. Sometimes, and it's we've got so many things to do in life, Peter, and then to bring
mm,
someone and say, hey, you need to work on your mobility. The first thing a lot of people think is, oh my God, is another task. It's another thing. So
yeah,
our
yeah,
job as coaches, obviously, is to be able to, to cut all the fat off and just get down to the meat and potatoes and give people, precision, work so they won't feel like they have another extra task to do,
yeah,
because people are doing a lot of stuff, man. The training
yeah.
is so that's going to be
Exactly, and
interesting to talk about.
that's exactly how I position it with people as well. Because, like you say, immediately when we start looking at this program, people's like, "Oh, well, where am I going to find an additional 1, 2, 3 hours a week on top of?"
Yeah,
Take a high performance person. He's probably already spending 3, 4 hours in the gym on a daily basis anyway. Where's he going to fit in an extra hour? So my approach to this usually is, and I did a talk at Joint Space the other day where I said exactly the same thing. You shouldn't look at these things as an add-on. You should look
mm,
at it as supplementary, complementary. It needs to be ingrained in your training program to such an extent that you shouldn't be asking the question of where do I need to add on. Rather look at what
Yeah.
are some of the stuff that I'm doing too much of that I can replace and put this in, because if the joints start to work better, the connective tissues, ligaments, tendons, all that stuff, then my performance overall is going to be better. I was talking to a
Yeah.
guy who's saying, yeah, when he does chest, he spends, 2-3 hours in there and he does this press and that press and single arm. And
Yeah.
I say, well, let's take some of that stuff out and replace it with some internal, external rotation stuff. We work a bit on extension, and then you cut your chest day in half, or at least 25%, and you spend some of that time just working on this capacity training, and you'll over time see how the capacity improves just naturally. I think that's
Yeah.
the
I
key
mean,
thing. It's just getting people to understand it.
yeah, those are the layers that I've sort of discovered over the years. Once I went down the FRC rabbit hole, and then I started to present this to people. The education piece alone, just getting people to understand what it is,
Mm.
why it's important, and then how to implement it in a way that is not going to disrupt what they're doing. Because
Mm.
so for example, like CrossFit athletes, pretty much their training and their exercise is one and the same, right? But for us as jiu-jitsu athletes, you've got guys who train jiu-jitsu 4 times a week, and then they go to the gym 2 or 3, 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So they're just completely annihilating their bodies on top of
Mm.
their work and school and daily lives. And I know that the CrossFit athletes go hard, right? They go hard. So
The
it's
harder we go, the better.
yeah. Well, it's just is yeah. I mean, if we can get the people to understand it, and then why it's important, then on top of that, just how to use this stuff to fit it into their plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot of unlearning, I think, that needs to occur.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, we had to do it.
Yeah.
We're still doing it. We're still unlearning
Yeah.
things that were taught to us. No pain, no gain. All that stuff. I mean, you got to get that stuff out of your head sometimes, to make space for
Yeah.
something that's going to be useful.
No, 100%. And that's why, because I think there's still, I don't think this has reached deep enough yet for people to get a fundamentally different understanding of what mobility really is. You talk to a lot of people that have not come across FRC or similar yet, and to them, mobility is, I do a bit of a warm up, I tug on some tissues, nervous system feels okay, I've got access to some range, I can go and do the workout, and then that's it. Right? It's all about just that flexibility aspect, that feeling good in the moment so that I don't injure myself right now. But people
Yeah,
forget that, being uninformed of how that system actually works is, you go through that cycle of warm up, feel good, train, get stiff, warm up, feel good, train, get stiff. And then over time,
Mhm.
not having that capacity there just slowly eats away at the available capacity and the condition of that joint. And before you know it, you're back into a situation where people throw their arms in the air and say, well, I did all my warm ups, I did all my cool downs, I thought I did all the right stuff, but yet still I'm injured. Why?
Why is
Right? And
my
it's just
back
getting
still
that
hurting?
message across. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. It's a big task for us, as coaches, just because here's the thing. One of the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in right now, I think, in fitness world, is oversimplification and nomenclature, right? Using
Mm.
words that we really don't know what they mean, and
Sounds cool.
coaches, including all of us, are guilty of it, right? Just oh man, my shoulder's tight,
Mm.
that type of thing. And like, what does that mean? And once you really um, start to understand, start to ask better questions, you realize, man, this thing is pretty specific, and specificity scares
Mm.
people. because I've talked to some really high level strength and conditioning coaches whom I respect a lot, but we've come to the conversation about mobility and like, oh man, just get strong, man. We don't worry about that. It's like, that,
Yeah.
and I was just, and that didn't happen once. It's happened several times, and I was pretty shocked at how much they just grazed over it. Like, you know,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. It's okay. It's an
Yeah.
accessory, right? And so I think once we start to define things and start getting people aware of the nomenclature that they're using, the words that they're using,
Mm.
then they start to say, "Oh yeah, well actually no, that's that. No, I need to improve my mobility, not my flexibility, or I need to,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Our field is full of buzzwords, functional
Mm.
training and this and that, and all of these words that we use, which I understand why, because you're dealing with the mass of people, marketing campaigns, group classes. So you don't really have time to go into depth about what it is.
Yeah.
But we see the consequences now of not really understanding the words that we're using to describe what we're doing. So
Yeah.
that's just my take. I could be
No,
completely wrong.
100%. And you've hit the nail on the head there, because you hear it often, right? And I see it with the CrossFit guys every week. We do a lot of intense training, so the body is always sore somewhere, right? And
Yeah,
it's become almost this this culture of, you kind of accept that you're always sore, and
right.
you never really ask why, because you kind of know why, but you don't ask the question of, well, how can I be less sore? We go through recovery stuff, and you obviously try and recover as best as you can. But like you say, it's not asking the real questions about how can I condition the tissue to handle the volume better, to recover better by itself, to improve the architecture of the stuff that I'm taxing and loading every day, to try and get a better outcome. We kind of just accept that that's the normal in the sport. You're meant to be sore because then it meant you worked hard. And then unfortunately things start to break down after a while. When I wanted to jump in when you just talked about that point of the strength and conditioning coaches that kind of just skim over this whole mobility thing. I'm seeing a new lady now, and I've been working with her for a couple of sessions, and she's obviously got a separate strength and conditioning coach. So we've started doing cars. I've been teaching her cars, and she started to see the results of it already before training. She feels looser. She does a bit of pails and rails before she does training. And she was telling me last week, her coach came over to her and asked her to stop doing what she's doing. It looks embarrassing. People are going to think that he's the one teaching her the stuff. So we had a good laugh about it, but
Oh
it's to that
wow.
point, right? It's people that are still of that mentality, culture, that strength training. We just here to lift weights. We just here to load. Joints will follow along. You'll get stronger, etc., right?
Oh wow.
So, yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
I posted something. You've probably seen a few things I've put on
yeah,
social media lately. I said, because I'm in jujitsu, some martial arts, and obviously we do like these belt promotions, right? Where you get
mm,
your white belt, then you go to a blue belt and purple belt. And that's just they're just, it's a symbol of how much work you've put in, and your commitment, and discipline and all that kind of stuff. Um, they don't doesn't really mean a whole lot what people think it does, but it has merit. And
yeah.
I posted it several times. What if your next promotion depended on your mobility?
I saw that one. That was good.
you
Yeah.
know, I got a lot of hate mail. Like, man, don't say that,
Oh,
man.
really?
Like, you know, like don't give my students. I had coaches sending me messages. Don't give my students. Don't scare them like that. And then I had students
Yeah.
sending me messages saying, don't give my coaches any ideas.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah,
it's good though, right? Because to that point is, because there is still so much that people have to unlearn before they can relearn this
yeah,
stuff. is if you now take that same guy that sent you the hate mail and you spend 15 minutes with him. It's just, and I've seen it with so many of the CrossFit guys that can squat heavy, that can press heavy, that can snatch heavy, and you get them into some of these positions not to prove a point, but so that they
Hmm.
can realize there's a lot much more to it than just the pattern function movements that they're used to. And a lot of those guys come out of the class saying, man, I didn't think my hip was this weak. I did a
Mm.
130 kilo back squat last week. So
Yeah.
it, that's the part that we're trying to get across, and we need to try and get across to people is there's so much more to this training, and you can get so much more from whatever it is that you do by just making these small adjustments and unlearning what you think about, or what you think you know about mobility and flexibility and strength training, because that's kind of the new angle for us now, right? Is and that's the way I sell it, is mobility is not, it's not my job to get you flexible. I don't care how flexible you are. I want you to be strong everywhere. So for me,
Mm.
my class is strength training. I just focus on different things.
Yeah, and I mean it's. I think one of the biggest things I come across is, when you think about building your body, then we automatically think about doing some type of resistance training, lifting weights to build muscle
Mm,
tissue. But for most people, it's never occurred to them that they could actually train their joints separately to be strong.
mm,
And once they kind of grasp the idea of we're this is a separate thing, but they complement each other. Like, we're going to focus on your elbows, right? Um, it that concept for a lot of people, they say, "What do you mean train my elbow? Like, is it going to get
mm.
bigger?
Yeah.
Can I flex it in the mirror?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean train my ankle? Like, what does that
Yeah.
what does that look like, right?" So once we can get them to say, "Man, like, separate it for conversation," right? But in the back of our mind, we understand that they're one and the same, right?
Yeah.
But to get a person to say, "Man, like," the other day, good guy, friend of mine, bodybuilder, beautiful body, man, physique. He's competed and everything. He's like, "My back day." So he goes through all these different exercises about, his exercise that he does to build his back. But I'm like, 3 months ago, you had back issues and it was a spine problem you had,
Yeah.
right? That's also your back. And so it's just new. It's just new. We didn't know it.
Yeah.
Most people still don't know
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. 100%.
We've discovered it now. We've been cursed with it, right? So
Yeah.
now that is
That's a good curse. It could have been
it's a good
worse.
curse. It's a good curse, but
Yeah.
it's horrible. Sometimes I'm walking down the street and I'm like, "Oh man, look at her internal rotation of her hip. I wish I could just
Yeah.
sit down for 10 minutes with her and explain."
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that's the way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point, because I found myself now, particularly, more and more just checking people out, not in a creepy way, but you
Yeah.
start to notice these things a little bit more, particularly the guys and girls that complain about certain things, certain niggles, certain things here and there, and this side is that and this side is that. And you watch them for just a while, and then you tend to start noticing these things, right? A little valgus collapse on the left knee, or the right hip moving a little bit further than it's supposed to, spine not being straight, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
and that's what really interests me about it, because once you then start having conversations with those people, and you just start planting that seed of making these small adjustments, they tend to see those differences very, very quickly themselves as well. And that's where the buy-in happens, is
I took a
you
I took an interesting
yeah.
course recently, and it was heavy on just watching the gait, just watching people walk. And the analogy
Mm.
that Dr. Loke was used in the class, he said, if I was a fish and I had a complaint about my movement, he said it would be how I swim. If I was a bird and I have a complaint about my movement, it's about how I fly. As a human,
Mm.
the most basic thing that we should look at is how we walk, because
Yeah,
that's how we move, right?
that's how we get
Before
around. Yeah,
anything, just walking, that's how we get around. And so then we went deep into this whole watching, looking at the gait and how people, he really cursed me with that one. Now I have to just look down or look up. I can't watch people now because you see so much going on in the body.
yeah,
Not their fault. We know, you and I, we understand that your body's just going
yeah,
to adapt to whatever you give it, right? But
yeah. Goes
it's
on
so
autopilot.
interesting. It's so interesting. It was a room full of physiotherapists in the room, and we all started walking, and he just broke us down, man. Like, wow, you know. So yeah, it's basic. It's basic. We all got things going on,
Yeah,
but those low hanging fruit can oftentimes make a huge difference.
yeah, yeah.
Once they're corrected,
And and again, we take it for granted, right? Because a lot of these things happen seemingly autonomously, and that's
Mm,
the thing I tell people as well. Is something as simple as once you start blocking cars. I start doing cars with people. Shoulder moves amazing, relative, and then you start blocking in certain areas, and you start stopping them, and that range shrinks by about 40%. And that's when the light goes on. People realize actually how much the body compensates without you even noticing. And that's developing that body awareness, like you say. When you walk, you just walk because that's how you walk. You're not going to think about, tripod position in the foot, bit of external
mm,
rotation, getting the knees aligned, making sure it doesn't collapse, making sure I don't have too much of an anterior pelvic tilt, blah, 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 all these things. You just walk. And it's once you start paying attention to these things, that's when you start to realize, well, maybe that's why my left knee hurts. That's why my hip feels stiff and these kinds of things. So it's really interesting. But I get what you're saying. Is
yeah,
you find yourself in those environments now where you're constantly analyzing. It's just running on autopilot.
yeah, yeah. Well,
That's
and
good.
then you think, and then you we also had a case. Now I know, I come from a jiu-jitsu background, and athlete and primarily CrossFit at the moment. But then you start to see elderly people and the way they move and the agony that some of them
Mm.
are going through, just the way they move. You can see that they're just, their bodies have taken a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah,
And I tell you, man, we both have worked with elderly people, and it is scary.
yeah.
It's really, really scary to see someone in their, 60s and 70s and 80s, even, that look like if you blow on
Yeah.
them, they'll just fall apart.
And that's a lot
Um,
of years of accumulated damage, right? And some of
Accumulated
it,
damage. Yes.
you know, in a very optimistic scenario, probably some of that stuff you'll be able to not necessarily reverse, but
Mm-hmm.
build up a bit of capacity so that the body can start to handle itself better for the later years. But I mean, to be fair, let's take the average 60-year-old now.
Hey,
FRC
hey,
hasn't
hey, I'm
been.
55, man. Be
Yeah,
careful.
you're fine. You're fine. I still see you rolling around the mats, beating some of the young boys up. So you're fine.
I'm 55.
That's your
Watch, watch,
that's your.
watch what you say.
All right. Let me take it up one. Let's say 70. That's your
Yeah, okay, okay.
chronological age, by the way. Yeah.
70. Let's say 70. Yeah, 70 is good.
FRC has not been around that long or mainstream long enough for those people to have had this understanding, right? So
No.
the stuff that they've been doing through the years is just that's the stuff that they knew. And
Yeah.
and I'm at that stage now, and I'm sure you are as well, is I'm not that old yet. I'm in my 40s, but I wish I had this stuff when I started doing sport really, really competitively and professionally back then. Just making those adjustments there. What would what would my body have felt like now?
I
Just
tell
these
you.
things in mind. Yeah.
My stepson's 19 years old, almost 20. So
Yeah.
you can imagine. He got into bodybuilding a few years ago, and he's got the Dutch genes, man. He's just got an amazing physique. He's about 6'3", and he's
Yeah.
just super ripped, very athletic, professional level football player. And I got him doing cars years ago. I mean, when he
Yeah.
was playing, junior soccer, and he does his cars every single day. He does his mobility work. Very few injuries he's had over the years, and he
Mm.
plays pretty. He played rugby, football,
Yeah.
and he does a lot of bodybuilding. And
Yeah.
so when we met a few weeks ago, I tested him. I did it. Man, his FRA was good, man. I mean, his body is just. I was like, wow. Just giving this to the youth at this age and them understanding
Yeah.
it. Obviously, by us being in the same household, he heard this stuff constantly. And me owning a
Yeah.
gym,
Yeah.
he was around it, but he absorbed it, and his just it's just amazing. It's amazing how his
Yeah.
body looks and how it feels and how it functions at his age already.
And you can just imagine what his body, if he keeps doing what he's doing, what shape his body will still be in when he's 40, 50, 60. If he
Exactly.
keeps doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, to your point, for a lot of the older people today, they are at a slight disadvantage because I don't think they had an awful amount of the stuff that we had now available to them. I mean, back in the day as well as, I take my grandparents as an example.
Oh
For
yeah.
them, it was just daily stuff, doing daily stuff, couple of arm circles, couple of stretches, good to go.
Yeah.
So I think we're really, really privileged to have the stuff that we have now and having the ability to try and get that out to people, even at a late age, to
Yeah.
try and make their later years as, I don't want to say comfortable, as
Yeah.
as productive, as enjoyable as possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of us are working towards that retirement age where we want to be able to, hopefully, if we're blessed enough to be able to travel when we get older.
Yeah,
So if you retire when you say 60, early 60s, 60, maybe mid 60s, okay, you're retired. I mean, what does that mean? That means that you
and
have
now,
more time, that you can
yeah,
move and do things that you didn't have a chance to do when you in your working years. But if guess what? If you don't have the body to do it,
yeah. Now
you're
you're
going to spend a
stuck in a
lot of
body that
time in
doesn't want to do the
rehab.
stuff.
Yeah, you can't even do it. You can't even
Yeah,
enjoy your retirement. I tell people that a lot in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, man, um, it takes about 10, 11, 12 years to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu, and it's a hard 10 to 12 years, on
yeah,
the mats. But man, by the time you get to black belt and your body's completely destroyed, you can't even enjoy yourself as a black
yeah,
belt.
yeah, yeah. You got
you
there, and
know?
that's it. That's the top of the hill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You're at the top of the hill, man, and then here comes a young guy who's been training for 6 months, man, who's just ripping you apart because your
yeah,
shoulders messed up, your knees bad, your lower back's been hurting you for 8 years. You can't do anything.
yeah,
I don't care how many techniques you know. If your body can't perform them, it doesn't matter.
yeah. And it's twofold, right? And I tell a lot of people as well is, to that point, there's a very big difference in being able to exert force
Mm-mm.
versus taking it. Um, and
Absorb
and
it. Yeah.
and you see a lot of people still in relatively good shape as they get older, being strong. They've accumulated a lot of strength over the years, and they can still move stuff around. But the body doesn't like it when life hits back.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. But it's a real. I mean, we can go on for hours just on episode one, right? We
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can keep doing this as a marathon episode. But
Yeah.
I think it was a good starter. I know we're in about 40 minutes already, and I'm happy to keep going, but I just wanted to quickly, give the people a taste for what's coming and some of the stuff we are going to be talking about over the next couple of, I think we could probably safely say couple of months, and
Oh
I'm sure
yeah,
this will evolve as
yeah,
we go. But it's really just to drive home that understanding of why mobility is important, and not mobility the way you used to know it, but mobility going forward, why it's still so misunderstood. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about the two different camps you and I come from. You sharing your experience from the jiu-jitsu lens, me sharing mine from the CrossFit space, where they intersect, where they overlap, and how they, to a degree, you said it already, where there may be two different ways of execute, or two different ways of demonstrating movement, but the foundation still remains the same, right?
yeah, yeah,
Warm
100%.
up and joint preparation. We'll talk a lot about that. CARs. We've talked about CARs, controlled articular rotations. The boring daily maintenance, the brushing of your teeth, of your joints, kind of stuff. I'll just go through a couple here. There's too much that
Yeah,
we've got listed here to list, but end
yeah,
range strength. That's where, if you don't have it, that's where you usually get injured. Nervous system. That's probably one we need to talk about quite early on, because a lot of people still firmly believe that it's the tissues responsible for all the work. The tissue controls how far I go, how deep I stretch, how flexible I am, how strong I am, right?
wow.
What else?
We have a lot to
We've
talk
got a
about.
bunch of stuff. Injury patterns I've got down here. We've got a movement you talked about this, and I like this very much. Being a movement educator as opposed to just an exercise giver, just somebody that tells you to do an exercise, but really getting you to understand why you move that way, why you should move that way, right? I think fundamentally, because I remember you said as well, you've been in kind of the, not just the fitness space, but the education space for a long time, and it's
Yeah,
that aspect of being able to teach people the right things in the right way, so that the penny drops and they understand why things are different. Why do I need to do it this way, rather than just giving them an exercise program and say, do your cars every day, do pails and rails 3 times a week, etc.
well, I taught. I was a teacher for 18 years, Peter,
Yeah.
and I found myself. I've taught at all levels, from elementary, high school, and university level. But I remember when I was teaching a bunch of third graders, you know, and I remember I was so frustrated one day. I said, "Man, what did I do to deserve this?" Right? Trying to get things, in their heads. But I guess all of that is now coming back around when, you talk to people who go to the gym and they're fit, and they're really excited and passionate about staying fit. But then when you really kind of talk to them a little bit deeper than just the cool stuff, you really realize sometimes not everybody really has a lot of knowledge about their bodies.
Mm.
And it's not in a bad way. It's not judgmentally speaking, but it's like, actually, that's not the way the body works, man. Like,
Yeah.
let me. It's I understand where you're coming from. I know why you believe that, but the body just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Our tissue is not rubber. You don't warm it up and it stretches. It's just not the way it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, that's it, man. We got a lot to talk about. I'm excited, and I appreciate your
Likewise.
time, man, and putting this together. I know you're busy, but we're gonna keep going now, man. I'm excited about it, and I hope this
No,
resonates
loving
with
it, loving
everyone.
it. I'm really privileged to have you as my co-host on this. We've
Oh
got
no, man,
you've got
no, the
years of
honor is mine,
experience
brother.
in this, and I think we're going to really have a good time. We've got lots of stuff to talk about. I'm excited about this, and let's see how this
100%,
develops. And let's
100%,
let's
100%.
keep this going. So to everybody listening, obviously we're going to try and do these conversations as frequently as we can. Akil is a busy man as well. I'm a busy man. We're trying to help people move better. But, what we can't get to do in person, we're going to try and do through here. Educate and get people just to have a better understanding of not just how they move, but potential that they're missing out on because they still got all this stuff that they need to unlearn. So if we can open up people's minds to start seeing things differently, and as you say, getting to learn their bodies and not just accept it as, it works this way, so it works this way. I'll just keep working at it, and when something breaks, I'll fix it.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. It's just try and get people to be a bit more proactive and take better care of their bodies.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Pieter.
Amazing, man. Thanks, man. I'm going to hit you up on the next one. I'll go back to the board now. Get this first one out, and then I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy.
See you.
Take care.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Cheers, man.